Hello, I'm Professor Khalid Khan from University of Granada in Spain. Today we will talk about post-publication integrity issues in clinical trials. This is work that I have done jointly with a large group called the Cairo Consensus, and Maria has been my colleague as part of the group leading the work. So I'd like to request Maria, please could you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Khalid. My name is María Nunez, and a postdoctoral research fellow in Clinical San Cecilio in Granada, and also clinical pharmacist here.
Okay, so the post-publication consensus is our second project. The first project was published and then subsequently also translated in Spanish and Chinese. And further translations in Arabic and French are underway. But today's topic, which I have also covered in my book on systematic reviews as well as clinical trial integrity, the topic relates to post-publication integrity issues. Before we proceed,
Could you explain us a little bit more with our post-publications
yes,
issues?
yes, let me do that first. So it is well recognized now that not all trials can be trusted. People even claim that up to a third or a quarter of trials may have some integrity flaws. But moving on from there, let's just look at the publication process. A trialist submits a completed manuscripts to a journal, and then this is assessed by an editor who may reject it or may send it for peer review, who may also reject it. But if the editorial and peer review assessment leads to the decision to seek revisions, then ultimately the trial may be accepted and published. The published trial is called the version of record. And this version can be read by anybody who has access to the paper. And they may carry out what is called post-publication peer review. This assessment may include many aspects, including ethical consent-related issues, as well as statistical issues. But in the end, it is possible, if prospective registration is available, for readers to check whether the published trial is in accordance with what was planned. And if they have any concerns about any of these issues, they can raise these issues with the journal as a letter to the editor, or they can even raise concerns as a complaint, or they may put their concerns on public forum or blogs. One such public forum is called PubPeer. Once these concerns become known, the journal has an obligation to evaluate whether or not an investigation should be carried out. And when they carry out an investigation, at that time, they may also issue an expression of concern. At this time, it's not clear whether the paper will continue to be as published in the version of record or whether it will be retracted. If the paper is not retracted, if there is no case to answer, then the expression of concern is removed. But if findings of serious issues, especially misconduct, are made, then the paper may be retracted.
And could you give us an example of a retraction note or retraction paper?
So let's have a look at this 2021 retraction of a clinical trial concerning ivermectin. This note concerning retraction clarifies that it is the authors who themselves identified an error in their published paper. They presented to the journal the concern that there were errors in their data files and analysis. And the journal's investigation confirmed this error. So both the journal and the authors agreed to remove the paper from the version of record and issued this retraction notice. But this apparently innocent error at the time of publication does not end as a good news story here, because the paper had already been included in a meta-analysis and subsequently the meta-analysis had to be retracted. Therefore, not only do we need to learn how to do trials well and how to report them transparently, but we also need to learn how to appraise papers well and how to investigate them properly. And this is the background to our consensus paper. Maria, could you describe how this work was done?
Sure. Well, we first started like submitting the protocol to the ethics committee because we wanted to know if it requires or not the ethics approval. They all agreed that it was not required due to the nature of the paper. So then we draft the protocol and we registered it in an open access platform so everyone could check it was how it was conducted. Also the data sharing at the end of the process, we tried to put all the data there so everyone could check if there was any mistake or they could redone all the analysis. And also, as you said before, it's very important to pre-register so we can confirm at the end of the process that we conducted as was planned in advance. So that was prior starting everything. That's how we did it.
Okay, so in any consensus, the composition of the panel is an important feature. Maria, could you say a few words about that?
Sure. We really felt like it was, as you say, very important because we needed to have a wide representation and in equity, in geographical distribution, in expertise. So we included at the end 48 experts. Those were included through following a snowball technique, and they all have like to know conflict of interest or any issue regarding integrity at the time of this process was made. So they were experts from 18 countries, and the expertise included people from trialists with expertise in clinical trials, in industry, in ethics committee, also like former journals editor that have experience, first-hand experience dealing with this type of misconduct allegations. Also statisticians, systematic reviewers. So we try to cover all post-publication issues around RCTs.
I think one of the other things we ensured was that at the time of taking part in the consensus, none of the colleagues had been subject to any form of retraction of their own work.
Well, that's true. That's true.
What was the geographical distribution of the work?
Well, those experts like were from 6 continents, and they included like from low and high income countries. So we have people from Europe, Africa, South America, North America, also Asia, as you can see in the graph.
Okay, so what did we then then find as we did the work?
First, we wanted to have a list of recommendations. So for that, we started the creation of a long list of statements. For the creation of the initial list, first we conducted a scoping review, a systematic review, which can you go? Which capture like recommendation reported in literature, but those were not like completed. So we asked our stakeholders, our experts, like to provide some input. So they also provide statements, and we merged it together, and we started with an initial list of 108 recommendation. Then we took that list, and we went through a consensus document, a consensus process, and that was using a Delphi technique. It was first we had one meeting, then another one survey, and we end up with an on-site meeting to decide which are the statements we need to record it and keep it in the final list. We had to process some of the statements, delete it, merge it, and put them then together or reward them. So at the end, we end up with 84 final statements.
What is the bottom line with these statements, Maria?
Well, those were like very broad. So we decided to group them in 9 domains that went from general aspects to future research. So for general aspect included all life cycle of the RCTs. So for example, like training, checklist for critical appraisal.
Yeah, it's important to emphasize that the paper's journey does not end on its publication. This is where the post-publication aspect begins, and the initial statements emphasize this.
Also, that the journal needs to include in the instruction and policies like details process of how to do the allegation, but also how to deal with these post-publication issues, also from authors and also for the people who want to raise a concern.
Yes, the editorial peer review process should be undertaken in such a way so as to minimize the risk of subsequent retraction. So the statement contains guidance concerning this aspect.
Also for correspondence and complaints. So people need to know, like readers need to know how to present that information and in which format and how to process that.
Sure. And once complaints are received, what would be the policy or procedure concerning investigation? And the decisions and sanctions that may be applied following investigations should be incorporated in a document and not just made up along the way as investigations are undertaken.
Especially for some harmonization and transparency in those processes, right? And again, like critical appraise guidance, like for both, for readers, also for journals, also for authors. So they need some guidance of how to apply those.
The systematic reviewers themselves need to have good guidance about how to deal with integrity concerns in their own reviews, and the statement includes some guidance concerning these aspects.
And finally, recommendation for future research. For example, the incorporation of artificial intelligence or other type of tools that need to be assessed.
All right, so with this, we bring our video to an end. I would like to thank Maria for joining me today, and also you for listening. And if you have any comments for us concerning post-publication aspects of clinical trial integrity, then we would welcome them. Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you, Khalid.